As far as we know, we are alone. There is no conceivable place in the universe that we could call home. Earth is our only lifeboat. Our planet will soon be home to 9 billion people and a projected 11 billion by century's end. As the human species grows exponentially, our current resource consumption is not balanced with the planet's ability to regenerate the resources we consume. Put simply, planet Earth is running a deficit, and each year we dig deeper into the piggy bank, risking the prosperity of future generations. Food is fundamental to this concern because the vast majority of our resources, including water, energy, and fuel, go into producing our food. One perceived solution to the resource quandary is to eat local. Yet our local food consumption is still a tiny fraction of our diet. To live local has become a foreign concept to our culture. We expect having access to everything, every day. And to live local requires sacrifice most are not willing to make in our modern world. With strained global resources, our future prosperity may depend upon our ability to create food-independent communities. In other words, a sustainable future will be measured by how well we can live off food grown closer to home. We set out to follow local farmers in Idaho who feel a responsibility to be part of this paradigm shift in our food system. We asked them, why is building a local food system important? Why are people compelled to make major life changes to pursue local farming? And perhaps most importantly, can we become food independent, living exclusively off our regional farm production? A case could be made that there is no more important role than that of a mentor. On our first day of filming, we met with Lee Rice, a 20-year veteran of local organic farming. Like many farmers in America, Lee sees his newest opportunity as that of a mentor. His benefactors, Kelsey and Ian, who represent the future of farming, young, ambitious, and setting a new standard for the American dream. When did this decision get sparked to have somebody else take over some things?
Well, we looked at the bottom line after the 2013 season, and that wasn't what we wanted it to be, and that coupled with my age and energy level and knowing the intensity that is involved in growing 35 or 40 different crops. I am 61. Yeah.
How long have you been farming?
Well, since I was about 40, so about 21 years.
We started on a trip to Hawaii and we saw that a lot more people there, since it's more of like a diverse culture. A lot of people were into it, and a lot more younger people are into it.
I felt bad about them not being able to come out and work here on the farm for Rice Farms, and I just woke up one morning and it came to me, and knowing how hard of workers they were from watching them last year and at the market, I just thought, well, maybe we should just lease the farm and the facilities to them. Why don't we switch it over to this line so we can fertigate it? I wouldn't have bit off what they're biting off at 23, 24 years old, you know what I mean? But they like it. They're definitely not wanting to be in the Roundup Ready era.
I went to school for a whole year of college, and I learned more in 2 weeks being out here than I could ever even come close to an entire year of college. So it's just like every day something new.
That was pretty intense in the beginning with all the
Yeah,
all
it
the
was.
things we had to get started going.
'Cause, yeah, it all happened quick. Because it was like, if you want to do it, we have to like start today. You have to just get on it and go. There's no like, okay, we'll ease into it for a couple weeks. No, it's like,
Kelsey, what's your definition of sustainable agriculture?
local farming, just local. Everybody putting in their part. Everybody doing a little bit. Because it takes everybody, I think, to make like the whole thing work. Lots of people have to be farming, small amounts. And then too, it just kind of keeps you in touch with what's real, I think. Because to grow your own food just brings out a whole another side of you. And to eat it, and it's just a health that I don't think you can get through anything else.
I water every other day, and so when I water, I like to do it real early, but we harvested this morning. We got here kind of early.
I am prepping seed beds because this wasn't worked in the fall time when it needed to be. So all of it is just like, they're like rocks pretty much. It's like I just found 2 eggplants over there that were just like covered in bugs, just completely eating everything. But mainly weeding, definitely. It's very time consuming. It's one thing to like get it up and growing and get it to actually fruit, but then you have it all. Like we have probably like 150 pounds of squash sitting in the packing shed. I forget I have to sell it. I spend so much time worrying about getting it to grow that I'm like, oh crap, now I gotta find somewhere for it to go.
Normally we go to bed at like 10, but last night we went early and we probably went to bed at like 9. We don't get back until we don't get done normally until 7:30 or something like that. We'll start to kind of load up the truck or the van at about 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So we'll get here probably about 4:30. Yeah, I can notice how busy we've gotten because there's some spots that the weeds have just been taking over. And we haven't had our mower plate. Just a couple things though, you know, it's not, I don't think it's unmanageable. It's just certain things like the tomatoes. We just have too many tomato plants right now, you know. There's only 2 of us. There's 500 tomato plants for each person.
For Kelsey and Ian, life on the farm is a family affair. And each Friday, the entire family comes to help pack for the Saturday market.
Sometimes you gotta just turn them off. Just 1 pound.
I'm proud of them. They're
Very proud of them.
they're learning lots, and we're learning right along with them every week. We sure are.
I know, it is pretty fun in that aspect. You guys get to learn all of it right with us.
Have you been a farmer for a long time?
All my life. Know nothing else. You know those crepe sole boots, those ones that's got the white sponge leather boots, that's when they came out. That's the first pair I ever seen. I was 7 years old. God, I wanted a pair of those. My dad said, you're gonna have to buy them yourself. He said, I said, well, I ain't no money. And he said, we'll go get a job picking spuds, you know, sacking spuds. They had these belts you put on, hang all these sacks. So I counted them out and I put them all on there, and I told that Mexican, I said, I want those 2 rows. He asked, I took off. I didn't make her from here to that tractor out there. I couldn't do her. I just went, oh shit. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't do it. It wasn't tough enough. Anyway.
These? Because I can use them for my CSA boxes on Tuesday.
We'll save
So save these.
Yeah. We packaged stuff last year and everything, but it was in a different way. It was only me and Ian. So it was not as fun. This is like family vibes, you know, the food, everybody eats and has a good time.
like it. Like the first hour, it's always the same people.
You're gonna charge me $3, I don't care what your excuse is, have a lid, man.
How are you today?
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
You guys don't get vacations, do you?
No, I haven't had a day off since like March, all the way through 7 days every day.
But why farming? I mean, you're not going to get rich, right? Maybe you will. But
Yeah, because it's definitely a labor of love. We truly do want more happiness and health all around in people. You know, everyone has families that they love, and a lot of people are unhealthy.
with youth comes exuberance, and with age comes wisdom, as Lee Rice offers a more sobering look at the state of agriculture.
Even with the cost of shipping, we're getting out-competed by the California and other large growing regions. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a farmer down there right now. I think that's what's going to happen with some of those regions in California. When it's gone, it's going to be gone. I mean, not forever, but it's going to be gone for a while. They're going to be out of business. The problem with lowering those water tables is they don't come back like a reservoir in a year or two. It takes years to get that water table built back up. And our food system is going to reap the rewards of what they sowed. When they have that big of a percentage of the nation's fresh fruit and vegetable market coming from one region, if something goes wrong in that region, then there's going to be a catastrophic situation, price-wise and supply and demand-wise. Well, it's a good thing I'm learning how to garden and grow a few things for myself, and maybe I'll even learn how to put some things in a jar and process some things, you know, that lost art of canning and freezing, you know. He's going to start developing to the east of me.
Houses?
150 acres, 450 lots. I like to stand right here on the high part of the... Doesn't that look cool? That hay didn't get enough rain on it to do squat to it. This gravity irrigated valley here is one of the, historically, I mean, it's one of the most magnificent things that they ever did, putting in these canals and this gravity irrigation from these three rivers and put this much land into cultivation and food production in geological time. It's just a flash in the pan. And we had it built, I mean, it was one of the most magnificent water delivery systems of anywhere, and in less than 100 years, they've taken 30% of it and planted houses on it, instead of putting the houses in places where it was harder to get water to. But it's economics and man. Maybe if they run out of water in California, they'll wish that they didn't cover as much of this land up with houses.
Change is also occurring with large farms, as we see Brad McIntyre making a transition to more sustainable farming techniques.
So they're like fourth generation basically right now. So my kids would be fifth generation. We're on the bigger end, but there's quite a few farms out there that are pretty decent size. There are things that we can grow here that we just never really have tried. It will be harder. I don't want to just get a bigger headache. I want to be able to have a little more time with my family and do more with them, because with the big commercial farm we already miss so much, and we do a pretty good job around here, and I have time to, you know, be active and participating in the community and in my church and with my family. With it, in the end, my family gets the end of my time after my job, and and all these other programs. So I don't think people understand what it takes to grow a plant. I mean, if they understood what it takes to grow all these things and to do all these things to produce food, I think they'd have a different outlook on the food system. It's not like we can't do it. I know we make it happen in our garden, so why can't we make it happen, you know, on the farm? It just takes more labor, higher intensity, more dollars, but people have to be willing to pay the price, you know, to make it happen in this area. Me and my brothers have kind of started pursuing, you know, a grass finish program or grazing dairy, and trying to see if that will, you can get more revenue per acre. That's where we're at. I mean, we enjoy what we do, but at the end of the day, you got to make money, and that's what we're gonna do. So, I really don't know very many people that just go out just to be a problem. They don't go out and spray weeds or spray pesticides to go out and hurt people. No one does that, but people feel that that's what we're doing. I think we need to be better at doing our part in this day and age and helping people understand what agriculture really is. So 5-6 years ago, I was sick and tired of picking my last rock. That's really what drove all this. I found an article that talked about no-till, healing the land and it covering his rocks up. And I'm like, this is great. I mean, if we can save passes through the field and it gets rid of my rocks, why wouldn't I do it? I'm 100% sold on keeping the land covered, you know, providing a food source for the biology at all times, keeping living roots in the soil and healing the land instead of we choose whatever crop and we just do whatever necessary to the land to get that next crop in there. We are now figuring out how to farm around no-till. With no-till, we can slow our pivots down so we have less evaporation. We're getting a lot more water infiltration, so we have almost zero runoff. We're getting that water in deeper, and you know, we're able to flush the salts out of the soil, so you know, everything just starts reacting better. And we see a huge benefit. I mean, life is returning to the soil and our organic matter is starting to go up. It's a slow process in this valley, the way our soils are structured, but it's working. I think that's what's most important, is getting the minerals back in these foods and getting, you know, plants where they used to be. I've got a lot of friends that want to be in agriculture. If they're not coming from family, which I feel very blessed that I came into a family that is in agriculture, it's almost impossible for them to get started besides a 1 acre and a really slow gain, you know. If you could have a model and show people that it works, there's so many people wanting to be involved with agriculture, but there's no avenue right now to get them there. Besides a lot of loans, debt. And we all know what debt does. It strangles you and you're a slave to that debt, and very few get out of it.
In today's fast-paced world, many are longing for the nostalgic lifestyle of our agrarian past. Making this shift in lifestyle comes with sacrifice, and many are naive to the challenges of the so-called simple life. A 3-hour drive east from McIntyre Farms, we find bananas and fig trees growing from geothermal energy in Hagerman's Miracle Mile, and perhaps a rebirth of our agrarian past.
I got interested in the food movement when a friend, Kelly Weston, came to me and said, James, if you can figure out who's growing the food, I think we can put something together. I was a traveler a lot of my life, and I came back from that experience with 2 understandings that were new to me. One was that people are basically good, and the second one was I could never work for anybody else. Led me to the backcountry of Idaho, falling in love with the wilderness hot springs, and for decades being on the hunt for hot water. I just thought, what a way to live. And when we found this property through family connections, we were able to purchase it. And we said, let's put up a greenhouse. And the kids said, yeah, we can do it. And I'd never grown anything at that time. Started adding greenhouses and learning more about what we were doing. And then James has been here a year, and he's now the brains and the brawn of the operation.
The current state of where eating is in America, unfortunately, for a lot of people, is almost an afterthought. It's almost a nuisance of like, oh, I'm hungry, I need to go get some food. That's about the most thought that they put into it, which means they're going to go for the easiest, cheapest thing, which again is something that was factory produced. It's mechanized from start to finish. I used to get a little bit disheartened about that until I read a quote. I'm not sure where this came from, but junk food and fast food and all of this is not food, it's entertainment. And so, you know, that makes a lot of sense. You go to get a fast food meal, it just tastes overwhelmingly good, it's easy, it's kind of a little bit fun, and you know, that's that. But it's not nutrition, and it has very little meaning.
Here with a winter farming program, and for me personally, getting more involved with the soils and the plants and permaculture in general, it's a complete revelation of my spirit. And what really is exciting is how people react when they come here. We really believe we're onto something in terms of lifestyle, in terms of an agrarian way of living. You need to understand how to be frugal, you know? You don't do this with new pickups and new barns. You don't do it. And you don't do it by hiring a plumber every time you're going to run a water line. I really think people are more interested in fun and feeling good and healthy, and the food just happens naturally. But there are so many great reasons in my mind to repopulate rural Idaho, to start feeding the people of our region, of our bioregion, and to create a culture around food. I get up and I don't have to go to the gym and go to church and go to all these things. It's like, you know, I just get up and go. And I learned quite a bit about this from the other farmers, ranchers, dairymen, and aquaculturists. I got to know these people. I got to know this subculture, and I like these people. They are real, they're humble, they're hardworking, they're grounded. They're just beautiful people, and it's like, I like this tribe.
How does the young generation get into farming, right? Because there's such few farmers, they don't even count us on the census anymore, and most of those farmers that are out there are 50 years old or older. The Reeds have been kind and had the vision enough to bring us in on this farm, and I think that's a huge part of the economic puzzle for my generation to get into farming, and that is partnering with the older farmers.
What we can't forget is when you are really following what you believe in and you're really passionate about it, things start to happen synchronistically. Like you guys here and these guys here and everybody's here today and sharing notes and realizing the connections. You know, you don't plan on that. It's not a part of a script to rebuild a local food system. It happens when you're in the right place, doing the right thing, and then stuff happens. And I'll call that synchronicity. Charles Eisenstein, I lean on a lot. He calls that synchronicity, and that's the wild card that leaves mystery in the equation. People who just look at it very scientifically, pragmatically, logically, yeah, we're screwed. But if you don't build in that wild card of those synchronistic kind of magical events that can come in as more people start playing in this, then yeah, you lose your spirit. You know, you lose your willingness to fight for the coming generations.
I know it's possible because I see how many people want to participate here and how many people want to be here.
Do we want to sound naive and Pollyannish and say, yeah, we can do it, when actually the forces that are coming down on us are really big, you know? And I think the biggest mistake we can make is not be real with what's coming down on us. And it's hard to be real with that. If it's not bringing up stuff for you, then you're not going into the truth. You're not sitting with really what is. Here you go, buddy. Yeah. So these have 2 crops a year. I know. The kids could just go nuts. Last week we had 9 9-year-old girls on a tour here. They were hysterically fun. It was, I think, the most fun tour we've ever done. Their exuberance and excitement over everything, from the figs to the fish to everything, is really, really fun. Because in the wintertime, it's all cold and nasty out there, and you come in here and it's bananas and figs and green and beautiful fresh food. And so we have a lot of volunteers from the neighborhood that show up, help with harvest, and they leave with a bag of food. I just have to believe, you know, I have children, you know? I have children, and, you know, what am I supposed to think? This whole, you know, million-year program that we're a part of, this evolutionary curve, is going to end in my time? Well, I guess it could, you know. I guess Yellowstone could blow and it's all over, whatever. There are a lot of really big challenges, and I think we're making a mistake to not encourage people to go deep into the understanding of what is going on and to get educated.
The fragile nature of our food system is not often contemplated or a subject at family dinner tables. But what happens if tomorrow there is no food at the grocery store? What is our plan B? Perhaps alarmist, these are the questions that one remote community in Idaho is taking very seriously.
Lemhi County is an agricultural community and always has been. We started in the 1860s as a mining community, but the ranching community moved right in to help feed those folks. We only have 3 ways out of our community. We can go north or south on Highway 93, or we can go east on Highway 28. And if we've got a grocery truck coming to stock our only grocery store with bread, and it doesn't show up, people look around and they get scared. And that's usually a 1-day delay.
Well, we had been farming for 5 years in Pocatello and had built up a really successful CSA and market farm. And we were feeding 50 CSA families off of just under an acre. We were outgrowing the space that we were using. We packed up the farm, sort of put everything in storage, planted our garlic in a friend's junkyard, and hit the road for about a year. You know, throughout the Pacific Northwest, really trying to find somewhere that really called to us.
We're not doomsday preppers or anything, you know, but you know, we feel like this is the future, more localized, you know, getting away from the centralized.
Good-sized jump in gas prices, it put 3 dairies out of business immediately. And if the rest of us think that can't happen to us, if as fuel prices go up, that we aren't going to face those crises, we aren't paying attention. To think that we are letting our resources, our hard-fought resources, go outside the valley for things we could be producing ourselves doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Industrialized food system is very convenient. It's hard to make the local foods movement as convenient as that machine is. And so retraining people, not just to expect a box every Wednesday that shows up in a refrigerated truck, it's a big deal.
This was nothing. When we moved to this spot, there's nothing but bare ground. So our landowners helped build the fence. They financed a deer fence for us.
Once a community loses their ability to process foods, it's really difficult to get it back. because those families might have passed down that dairy from generation to generation, but once they make the decision to sell, someone else investing in all that capital equipment and taking the risk, it's just not likely to happen.
Our early season hoop houses, they're a little bit out of production now. The plastic's off, and we did an early succession of summer squash and beans, and then early cabbage and cauliflower and lettuce.
In 2007, Salmon Valley Stewardship had its first harvest celebration. And we said, let's try to do this whole meal sourced locally. We picked easy things like potatoes, and we had a heck of a time finding potatoes that were grown locally.
And this is all basil. We finally kind of mowed it down last week because I think we harvested like 30 pounds of basil, and trying to sell that at once is a little bit difficult.
I'm excited to say that in 2014, as we are preparing for that same event that's become so successful, the grocery part of it was figured out early in the summer. There's these farmers who are producing these vegetables. There are these people that have this great livestock, lamb and chicken and pork and beef. And there's a surplus of all of it.
When we were moving to salmon, we're told, by everybody, oh, it's a lot colder and short growing season, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, well, as long as we can grow melons and sweet corn, we're good.
I think the goal is that there are families that are making a good living, that our food is grown in a healthier manner, that we re-embrace this rich agricultural tradition, that we're celebrating food and we're really understanding it. I think food brings people together. I don't think there are people in Lemhi County, it's not a Democrat or a Republican food movement. It's a salmon local foods movement, and it's a really unifying subject.
It does matter where our food comes from, and it does matter how it's grown and who is affected by it. Every single person in this country has the ability to change the way they participate in that system.
I think the best goal for a small place like Salmon is to show others that we can do this, is to be that can-do community, because if we're out in the middle of nowhere with maybe not the greatest climate, we're not the Snake River Valley, we have a short growing season. We're at 4,000 feet elevation, just in town. So if we can do it, why can't everyone else?
In communities across the United States, there are pioneers of the local food movement. Janie Burns is one such pioneer. Yet even with her passion and an increased interest in local food by consumers, it may not be enough to keep local food enterprises alive.
I've been associated with this business as an owner since 2002, when a group of other poultry growers and I decided we needed processing and we needed to have it under our control. Today we're doing ducks. We do waterfowl, we do chickens, we do turkeys, quail, chuckers, anything poultry. Here comes a camera. So you can see that and it's also a noisy area. The chickens, or in this case the ducks, are put into the killing cones. And we stun all the poultry, which is why we have all these wires. So we give them a slight electrical shock, and that renders them insensitive to pain. They go into the plucker, or into the scalder rather, and it's thermostatically set. This is a speed game and it's a volume game. And so in the industrial system, speed is compromising quality and worker safety and worker health. So here we're probably a little slower. We don't have all the mechanization, nor do we have the mandate of speed. I mean, I'm paying people by the hour, but I want a quality product at the end. Anyone who raises chickens, I think, has probably killed one themselves in their backyard, and they are like, I'm not doing it again. We've come to rely on grocery stores where we're buying things from who knows where. We don't even care where. As long as it's at a price that we can afford, it's there, and it's open all the time. We are 3 generations from the farm. Well, I'm going to add we're 2 generations from the kitchen. That there's a huge cadre of people who don't know how to cook. And so this just puts an incredible burden on any efforts to change. I can buy a 5-pound chicken that's cooked, rotisseried, ready to go, 5 pounds for $6. Now we charge here $5 just to kill and pluck and package a chicken. And then me as a chicken grower, I'm paying anywhere from $1 to $2 for the chick, day-old chicks. Then I'm paying for feed. I'm paying for processing. I've got to drive them here and take time to do it. So every 3-pound chicken that's raised in this valley costs $12 to raise. I don't care how efficient you are. Local food producers are offering very high quality at minimal impact to the environment, which is an externality cost. They're doing it with a great deal of social welfare in mind and animal welfare, and none of those things are paid for. People change for very individual reasons, and sometimes the culture around us influences those changes, but probably the biggest is around health. Someone has a diagnosis of cancer, and instead of eating well for 60 years, they get diagnosed with cancer, and then it's, oh, I better start eating well.
This seems like something you could do in every community.
Oh, totally.
But what's the biggest barrier?
Money. The biggest barrier is our reluctance to invest in the infrastructure that it will take to move local food into year-round eating and the diversification that it needs to have. You have local ag that is pretty visible but very diverse, doing lots of interesting things, but on a scale that can't possibly feed anybody. We can't feed our population based on small farms, and it's only because the emphasis has been on getting bigger or getting out. So now you have to buy a $100,000 tractor. You have to buy over 400 acres. You have to do that. How do you get into this business? There's a lot of education to be done. So we've spent 100 years dumbing down, and now we're at a crisis. And bringing people up to speed is really hard, especially when there are so many messages. It is so hard to know what to do.
As our network of food entrepreneurs expands, we had a chance to connect with Christopher James, offering perhaps the most surprising and ambitious local food initiative we would yet experience in the remote community of Chalice, Idaho.
We are embarking on an important effort to be able to prepare for more difficult times. And this is something we'll say that people have seen in part. Scripture actually says we see in part and we know in part, but when we see Him, when the Lord comes back, we shall see Him fully, and we shall be fully seen. So what's important is that I be faithful to my calling. I was originally asked by the Lord if I wanted to come and build a refuge out here. I've been out here 27 plus years. Now I'm just not doing this alone. I'm doing this in relationships with people really all around the world. And a lot of us don't know so much who else is doing what, but now we'll say that the Lord is bringing people together and finding out that He's got a plan. And even part of this plan is what you've picked up. You've picked up that, wow, sustainability, we've got to learn to live within this environment. We've got to learn to refine and to listen to nature and listen to what the Lord's doing, we can be 2 and 3 times more productive than we currently are.
Where's his flight buddy will be coming right behind it. You watch. He's looking for elk.
No, he goes through that same route every time. When I started here 20 years ago, there was nothing but sagebrush and water seeping out of the rocks. It's a spring, there are 2 springs. The main spring is at 92 degrees. It was just a small seep when the earthquake hit in '83, and the ground cracked open and it came out. Yes, everything's tilapia. This group I ordered 40% reds and 60% blacks, but you can order any ratio you want. We started back in production under Christopher James' guidance in August, rebuilding the old raceways so they were suitable, and then in October we stocked some of them with fish that were already a quarter pound. That way we could jumpstart our marketing. Well, we're just so fortunate that we have the water resource that doesn't exist anywhere else, to my knowledge. It's the largest aquaculture temperature spring for warm water fish that I've ever seen. When we finish this procedure, we should be able to meet drinking water standards with our effluent. And it's important to us to, to be good neighbors in that way as well.
Being sustainable is being able to properly evaluate what the conditions are and then to modulate and adjust so that we're able to full cycle all of God's creation. We're just trying to get in tune with what systems that He has.
We get this hatchery online, we'll be producing about 400,000 pounds a year of tilapia, and right now we're around 300,000 pounds a year. This will produce our young fish on up to at least a half a pound. State of development has never been done. This is compiling research from Cornell, Auburn, University of California. I'm not saying anything against the cattle part of the operation, but we do have the best conversion ratio of any farmed food animal. We can convert 1.2 pounds of feed to a pound of fish. You have to have the sort of backing that is long-term and a long-term viewpoint.
We're in it for the long haul, sustainability. So they're willing to make the investment, and we're really pioneering. That's what when we go into our meetings, we may have a little hurdle, but we say, hey, we're pioneering, we'll get through this.
So we're doing this, and in a sense, we're returning to Eden. We're to tend the garden. I have a little pathway up to my house. When I moved up there, there were maybe 8 or 10 little barrel cactuses like this. And then I'm walking up and down and I'm praising the Lord, having a good time, and thank you, Lord, for this environment. It's amazing that I've got over 100 of those on my walkway. I think they like what I'm saying. And I think, I'm trying to harmonize with nature. We probably have 150 cows there that are part of that pivot, and each day we'll move them over a step, and they'll eat the top 3 or 4 inches. What happens is they're eating the most nutritious part of the plant, then we move on, then it regenerates, we continue to water it, and we can put close to twice as many cows on the same area as we've been able to do before.
So one of the things we've been researching is a fodder system, and they've done this very successfully in Australia in very drought-ridden areas. We soak our barley in water for roughly 24 hours. So this is what's grown in 7 days. What it is a high protein, sweet, you can take this stuff, it's sweet, it's barley sprouts is all it is. Right now we've been testing it on our hogs, and our hogs prefer this over grain any day. And we produce in these 3 trays between 70 and 80 pounds of fodder every single day. We're producing this at probably about anywhere from $40 to $50 a ton, versus hay is anywhere from $150 to $250 a ton right now. Plus, we don't have tractors in the field, we don't have swathers, balers.
So we're in the process right now. We'll be going out and checking the market, taking orders of what people want, and we'll be supplying that. Now we're going to go meet Jonathan Shepard. And Jonathan, his handle is Sustainable Shepherd.
So this is a large aquaponics system. It's got 6 1,200-gallon tanks in it. Aquaponics, if you don't know what it is a combination of aquaculture and hydroponics. So essentially you have your fish in your fish tanks, you're raising your fish. A traditional problem with fish farming is that when you have fish in a pond or in a tank, you feed them and the wastewater comes out, which is actually an environmental pollutant because it increases the nutrient levels in your groundwater. So instead of doing that, we don't release our water into the environment, we simply put it into these big beds, run it through plants, the plant roots absorb all the nutrients out, cleans the water, and the water recycles back to the fish. So we're using the same water over and over again. We use about 90%, or it's estimated up to 90% less water in a system like this per head of lettuce as far as compared to raising it in a field. And I say in the past 30 years, we've become sort of habitualized to the idea of shipping our food in. Here, any time of the year in this area, we will now be able to get fresh vegetables whenever we want. These raft beds, they're 90 foot long and 8 foot wide, and altogether we can grow 6,946 heads of lettuce at one time. These are a vertigrow system, vertical growing system. This is actually a straight hydroponic system, and right now we've got some seeding. These are tomatoes and there's peppers on top. Essentially the roots of the plants are acting sort of like the kidneys of the system and cleaning the water up, and then we just recycle the water back in. This system was designed by Nelson and Pade. So this is the largest commercial system they've ever made. That's what all these big radiator looking things are. Those are our heat exchangers from that's pressurized hot water that's in those pipes. It keeps the temperature at the right level for the plants, which is about 78 degrees.
I'm just amazed at the beauty of how this all works together. And we are to prepare the food, to feed the fish do their business, and then when it's their time to be harvested, we do. And then we also process that excrement and the water, grind it up, fertilizer for our gardens, and oh, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. So I'm excited for what we're doing. That's part of the reason for the fodder. That's part of the reason why we're doing intensive grazing. It's much more efficient, plus we don't have to use all the diesel, and we don't need to run over the land all the time. The cows do that. So how do we do that? Is that we need a move of God, and I believe we're getting it. We're getting people that are seeing a little bit of the vision and catching hold of it. We don't need everybody. We need maybe 10 or 15% to do this. We may have 10 or 15% already. God visited this earth. He provided a wonderful earth. We've been called to tend it. And if He's showing us the best way to tend it, we do best to pay attention to it. Quite likely there'll be some major disruptions down the road that will shake up people, and they will have to make some changes. And we're going to help people make changes. People would say, there's no future here. I think there's a great future here. And part of it is living next in the land, blessing the land, and seeing forth the fruit. We're called to bear fruit, and I want to do my part.
Everyone changes for their own reasons. Some change because of faith, some change because of family, some change because of science. Without a doubt, this film changed our perspective on food, and hopefully in some small way, it has changed your perspective, or even sparked an idea. Our small change is to build a fruit and vegetable orchard in a backyard. For others, it may be reading a food label more closely, or visiting a local farm for the first time. Beyond food's necessity, It is a reflection of who we are and what we value as a culture. The pessimist may see a future of chaos and scarcity. The optimist may see a future of technological superheroes. And perhaps the realist understands that a future of abundance requires living within the limits of our local environment. May we continue to find new ways to live within our means. May we define food cultures that can be sustained for generations to come. And may we strive to live local.
Steady stare, and I found you holding what you could not dare, and I found you buried in my chest. Now I have you tonight and all